Hello and happy Wednesday, everybody. So good to see you. And when I say that, I truly mean it. Technology has been a very difficult friend today, and yet we persisted. So I appreciate you guys persisting with us because here we are. It's time for another episode of Networking Know How. And today I've got a very special guest with us today. So the conversation's going to be really robust. I see some people watching live. I'm so grateful for you watching live. Thank you so much for that. All right. So I want to make sure I've got chat up. So if you are watching live or if you're watching on replay, please get up and chat and let me know where you're from. Say hello and let's have a conversation. If you've had a day or if technology has been a difficult friend for you today, like it has been for me and for my guest, then take a deep breath. We are now entering the stress-free networking zone. And as it is in Down and Dirty Networking, this is the relational networking zone. So let's talk a little bit about that and what you can expect today because we've got a great topic today. So first off, this is Networking Know-How, where we help you network more stress-free like we do in our Down and Dirty Networking online community. And one of the biggest things that we are focused on is being an alternative to traditional networking. We focus 100% on relational networking. So, what is relational networking, you ask? Simple. It's having meaningful conversations to learn from and about someone to build lasting and authentic relationships. There's no sales pitches or pitch slapping, as we say. And what we're going to talk about today is how you can actually, a simple trick to improve the output of your networking results. There's a couple of simple things that you can do, and you're going to get to experience this by watching it happen in real time with my guest today. And so today's guest is Dwight Thompson, and I'll get into the details with him. But the point here is I'm going to have a relational networking conversation with Dwight on air. You guys are going to be able to watch what this looks like, how much more meaningful the conversation is. And even better, you're going to be able to participate in the conversation. If you're watching live, you can get up and chat and just let us know what's going on. If you're on replay, you can still participate because I do respond to every single response that's put into the comments. And I'm connected to our guests, so I'll make sure our guest answers as well. So it doesn't matter whether you are watching live or on replay. We definitely have it something available for you. All right, so let me make sure. Let's see where we are live. I want to make sure we're sharing this. LinkedIn was a little quirky today, so hopefully we have yes. Okay, so let me repost this. Give me a second. One of the things I have learned is technology will not beat me. There's no way I'm going to let it beat me. So get up and chat and let me know if you've been having like some issues with any of the, let's see here. Let's go ahead and get this. All right. Posting this over because it was being very quirky today. Can you tell I can't do two things at once? So there's a lot of people that say that they can multitask. And back in the day, prior to diagnosis, my brain could do a couple of things at once, but you only do them average. You can multi-project, but you can't multitask. And so for me to really have my brain in my head to do what I needed to do to make sure that we're streaming, for some reason, we weren't streaming on our Down and Dirty Networking page on LinkedIn. So I want to make sure that we're there, and we are. So yay, it's totally there now. All right. So Mm. I'm back. Remember, I told you technology has been a tough friend today? It has. But if you stay calm, you will get through it. So, anyone who tuned in and saw just a blank screen, I apologize. Thank you for sticking with me. I see some people watching live. Thanks so much, guys. I appreciate it. All right. Let's get this show on the road before technology becomes even more tricky, or maybe it's the solar flares, or I don't know. But I'm so glad you're sticking with me. So my guest today. So here in Down and Dirty Networking, we have events once a month, but we only do a handful of events that are open to the public every year. And so our last public event we had a wonderful conversations and connections event. And this guest of mine, Dwight, was one of our guests. And he actually won the first time attendee award, which is to be interviewed. Now, normally I would have interviewed him that afternoon, immediately following the event, and we would have had a wonderful conversation. However, at the time, I was having to use what they were teasing me with was my podcast or my NPR voice because I couldn't talk really loud because I was at a hospice center caring for my mom. And I wanted to make sure that Dwight got the best experience possible. And I wasn't remote and I was in my studio so that technology wouldn't be a problem. So that's funny since it has been today. So that humor's not lost on me. But I didn't expect to have the kind of weeks that I've had. So if you've been following and watching for a while, then you know that unfortunately my mother did pass, and so it's been a journey. And Dwight's been an absolute saint, extending some grace to me and saying, you know what, I want to put this interview where I can be in my studio, I can give you the full attention. Let's get on the other side of things. And so Dwight was super, super gracious in allowing me to schedule him today. And so that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to have a conversation. You guys get to get up and chat and join the conversation with us. And the best part is you're going to learn how relational networking can really benefit you. And our topic today is how to, the secret trick really to upgrade the output of your networking. So if you're doing networking, and you're like, it's kind of meh, or if you're tired of being pitch slapped all the time, if you are just thinking it's a chore, or when you think of networking, the thing that you say is like, oh, I can't believe I have to do this. If any of that resonates with you, then this conversation today is going to be fantastic. We're going to give you some concrete tips so that you can know how you can upgrade your networking output immediately and network more stress-free like we do in our online networking community here at Down and Dirty Networking. So let me go ahead and bring Dwight up onto the stage. Mr. Dwight, I'm so excited to have you with us today. Hello.
Salutations, blessings. How are you doing today? It's wonderful. Yes, we refuse to let the gremlins beat us. Humanity one, technology zero. Let's get it.
Let's go. Oh my gosh. High fives to you, Dwight. My gosh, it has just been a comedy of technology errors, but you know, you keep moving forward and you have just the best attitude towards things. So I appreciate you more than you know. And thankfully for the grace that you extended to me while I was taking care of the business with my mom. So I just really thank you. That means a lot to me. So I want to get into
Salute.
this. Yes, thank you. So one of the tips that I share with the community, and so let me back up. So Dwight and I do not know each other. My first time having any encounter with Dwight was during our event back in April. And so we have since had a conversation, but I knew I was going to be chatting with him here live. So I didn't ask him any of the questions that I normally would ask. And so we we prepped and I didn't ask any of this. He was very kind to send me a lot of background information on him, and I didn't look at it, even though it was very nicely done and I deeply appreciate it. But the point of why I didn't do that was not to be rude, but because I wanted to prove There is a power in having a meaningful conversation right out of the gate. You don't need to try and get to know somebody or build rapport with all of these other small talk questions. You can get right to it. And so the first tip that we have in our community, and Dwight, this might sound familiar with what we said at our April Conversations and Connections, is immediately treat everyone like they're your best friend. And so I see a couple people watching live. Live people, you are my best friend. You're Dwight's best friend. Dwight is my best friend. And when we are best friends to people, we start right into the meaningful conversations. So none of the
Right away.
superficial, yeah, you just kind of get right into it. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in and ask you the one question that I love, and just see how you ask. And we'll go back and forth. And Dwight, this will just be a general, casual conversation, hopefully very meaningful and a great
Blessings.
example for everybody. So I'm curious, Dwight, what's the best thing that's happened to you recently?
So to be fair, I'm a gospel poet, right? And I firmly believe in inspiration and living in the moment, right? And that's the heart of networking. So being able to erase all distractions, focus on where you are, and just be present, and that's super important. I love what you said about being best friends because the best friend skips all of the hustle bustle stuff, right? And there's 100% genuineness and openness, and if you are to be judged, so be it. But you will not go in with any preconceived notions, and that's important. So the greatest thing that's happened to me was transitioning or combining my natural skills with my business, because a lot of us take so long to find our purpose. Some of us retire without finding our purpose. Some of us die without finding our purpose. And for me, 2020 was a catalyst. So every day, even today, I had an experience on a phone call and I realized I was able to answer the question, not just because of my experience, but because I'm comfortable embracing who I am and telling the truth as how I see it, of course, backed up with some data, because that makes a difference. And
Mhm.
just that confidence, that's just next level. So that was the greatest thing so far.
I love that. There's so many people out there that I talk to that lack confidence. They lack the confidence, and that really is something worth celebrating. If you're an introvert like I am, and that usually shocks people when I say that, but I'm a very high introvert.
Same,
And so
same.
see, yeah, so talking or going in rooms, yes, I'm an introvert that was given, the gift of gab. But the gab can be detrimental because it could be a nervous gab, so there's no purpose behind,
Yes.
there's no meaning behind it. And
And we didn't
so
ask
I've
for it.
yeah, yeah. I see kindred spirits. We were best friends and we just didn't even know it, right? So yesterday, and I love that to kind of get back with what you were saying, I really love that you were able to get that confidence. And I really hope if you're watching that you can get confident by, I appreciate, that's not the word I'm looking for. It's falling out of my head. I promise you, that's the word I'm looking for. I promise you, if you really use this tip of treating someone like a best friend, you will have more confidence to talk to people. You will have more
Correct.
confidence to have a conversation like I'm having with Dwight, even if everything goes wrong around it. Like everything's gone wrong in this particular technology. And yet I was determined to have this conversation with Dwight. And that leads to the tip Tuesday that we had yesterday. And there was a couple quotes yesterday. And so I'm gonna read them because I'm not that good to remember everything. My brain's not that strong. But it says being intentional is the key to having meaningful conversations, connections, and lasting relationships. Your intention is your outcome. And so, Dwight, your intention is to be present and purposeful. You just said that. And I feel that's a gift that you can really give to the person that you're talking to. So, talk a little bit about intention and being present, and how that's transformed your conversations and just your life, because that's more than business. Talk to us a little bit and expand on that a little bit for us.
Well, an important aspect to keep in mind is we have so many distractions, right? Between phones ringing and family and work and children and television. Who doesn't want to binge watch the next best series that just came out, right?
Right.
But at the end of it, when you look at what you're trying to accomplish and you realize that the only way for things to work, and I love what you mentioned about being able to multitask, which is a misnomer. That's a huge misnomer. Okay. Multitasking should never have been invented. Maybe it made sense like in the 40s when all you had to do was like dial a rotary phone for 10 seconds to get a number to go out, right? And then you have to be connected to a switchboard operator. Then they would give them the area code. That made sense then. But now, if you're watching a commercial for 30 seconds, you are seeing babies and cats and a dog and a flying cow. And, there's all kind of colors. There's too much stimulation going on, way too much. So the intentionality has to be where you can focus on the conversation, because it's about balance. And that's why I love networking for me is different because prior, I would always focus in on one or two persons, and just speak one on one. And
Mm-hmm.
then COVID happened, and now we have this virtual space where you can conceivably meet with 10 people in an hour, right? And if you only get 5 minutes per person, like you really have to be able to be relaxed,
Mm-hmm.
and we have the stress commando here for that. And then B, you have to tap into, okay, this moment exists between you and I for a reason, and let's enjoy the flow and see where it can go. And then from there, sometimes you get a nugget, sometimes you get a boulder, sometimes you get a duck egg, but you have to embrace all aspects of it. And the intentionality lies in the fact that no matter the outcome, you will put your best foot forward. And that's important.
Oh, so many good things there. I want to unpack that a little bit. So, putting your best foot forward speaks to something, a term that I really love called reputational capital. I remember the first time I heard this term, it was from the executive director of the American Businesswomen's Association. And she said this term, reputational capital. And it just like light bulbs went
Hmm.
off. And what we were talking about is your job can change, or a lot of things we can't control. But the one thing that sticks throughout your entire career is your reputational capital. And if you are present, you're making someone feel seen, heard, and valued, right? And when you do that with them, your reputational capital goes up. So, as an example, the grace you extended to me as I'm dealing with what I was dealing with my mom, and you just were so loving and kind with everything, your reputational capital went up with me. And so even though I was saying you're my best friend right along, I didn't want to take you for granted. I wanted to really deliver. I wanted to show up excellent. I wanted to show up present for you, not distracted with hospice and everything else that was going on. And so when you have that intentionality, when you can show up with that purpose, you're going to get different results. You're going to increase your reputational capital. And this is something that most people don't even realize. So last week I did an episode about pitch slapping. And so, which I love that phrase, but I have to make sure I articulate it very well.
Very well. Very well. Yes, indeed.
But if there in traditional networking, it is about selling and telling. It's like, hi, my name is, buy my stuff. And it's just, shake hands, exchange, or blow up chat if you're in the virtual space. And one of the things that a lot of people tell me is that they're very frustrated with networking. If they've got more of a traditional mindset and they're looking for sales and leads, their intention is selling. Their intention is selling and telling, and they're wondering why they're repelling people. But then there are those that know I need clients and leads, but their intention is to build a relationship. So they are adopting a relational networking mindset, though they are engaging in activities and events that are more traditional or more transactional in nature. I have found, and even by my own experience, and this is what led me to relational networking and creating a 100% relational networking community, is you will get far better results. You will get far better output of your networking activities, regardless of what type of networking you're doing, if your intention is more relational. If your intention is about building relationships and having meaningful conversations. You can have a meaningful conversation with someone you just met, treat them like they're your best friend, and not only will it raise their reputational capital, but it will raise everyone's vibrational energy. You will no longer dread networking because you're going to ask more meaningful questions. You're going to have an exchange of conversation, and it's going to be a two-way conversation, not a one-way conversation where it's just like pitch, pitch, pitch. So I'm curious, Dwight, and this kind of leads in. So I love that you were saying about being intentional and purposeful and being present. That's all baked into relational networking. That's the difference maker. And yes, you go with the flow when stuff doesn't go your way. You just kind of go with the flow. And so my question for you is, your first time and your first experience with Down and Dirty Networking was in April. So prior to coming to one of our events, so not talking about our event, what had been your experience with networking in the past?
Well, for me, it's a little bit different because A, I'm actually, my background is in sales and customer service, right? And not just regular customer service, high end customer retention. So, what that means is that when I get the phone call, I'm getting the phone call after the person has called and say, hey, I want to cancel my magazine subscription. Hey, I'm unsatisfied with this provider. I want to switch my insurance company, right? So
Right.
now I'm getting a phone call of a person who is disgruntled, upset, probably been on hold for about an hour, right? Unhappy with the product and the service they've been receiving, and they are at the end of the line. So my skill set now has evolved to be able to handle that situation. So it's kind of like cheesecake, if you like cheesecake, for me, being in a networking situation, because for me, it's like walking on water. To God be the glory, and once you stay committed and keep your focus on, it becomes effortless. Similar to here in South Florida, we have hurricane season right now, right? And so you have to be prepared for that. And part of preparation is we all learned how to swim at some point, either with the YMCA or at the local beach. One of the hardest things to do in swimming is learning how to float. Because learning how to float, you have to get out of your head space, this huge, humongous ocean that could have octopus and sharks floating around you and jellyfish coming to attack you. You have to lean back and have full faith and trust. Inhale, exhale, kick your legs out, and just float. So prior to the linked down and dirty networking, for me, it was always I was the initiator of that floating technique. Sometimes I would go on different apps and different platforms, different virtual events, and I call it penguin slapping because I do not trust myself to pronounce the P properly. But
I love that. I love that actually.
so, and I'm a huge fan of penguin slapping, but what I've realized is a lot of folks don't know how to do it well. And on the other side, a lot of folks don't know how to receive it. You
Correct.
know, it's like you hear a knock on the door and you open the door, it's a vacuum cleaner salesman or a
Yeah.
carpet cleaning woman. And you don't need a service, but you don't want to be rude and shut the door in their face, so you have to entertain it, but you have to be able to have the wherewithal and the experience to take any first sentence, find the value in it, and then bring it back and say very easily, yes, I'm interested. I want to know more. No, no, thank you. And that's it. But a lot of folks don't have that skill and talent. Coming into the down and dirty, I realized I didn't have to be the one showing the technique of floating on the conversation. A lot more folks were aware of that method. And it has to do again with why are you in the water in the first place? Are you there to drown? No one goes into the water to drown. That is a bad plan. You go into the
Yeah.
water to have fun. So you should learn how to float. And this is one of the ways of doing it. And there's multiple levels to it. But being able to go into a conversation with intentionality, but at the same time, the flexibility to be able to be loose is important. So I was glad I found a space like what you guys have that gives that type of framework and the understanding. A lot of us do it naturally, like me coming from the Caribbean, everything Irie man. blessings, vibes, so we just take it easy. We keep a cool head. I can't recount how many times I've sat on Las Olas Beach with a Cuban sandwich, just chilling with a nice drink, and people walking by and saying hi and just keeping a cool vibe. That intentionality, you deliberately slow time down in the midst of the bustle of Fort Lauderdale and the hectic back and forth and the water taxis and the noise and the tourists, and just relax, enjoy your lunch. And that is what networking is about. So prior to Down and Dirty, I saw some glimpses some places, but I was the initiator. At Down and Dirty, I found more people of similar mindset, and that's important. We are trying to float, not drown in the conversation.
Oh, I love that visual. I'm so going to be referring to that. Of course, crediting you, Dwight, for all of that. I love that. It's about floating and not trying to drown. you know, it's not being a fire hose or this big tsunami wave of let me pitch everything and sell and tell to you everything that I have to say. It's nuts. And I give a lot of grace to the person that does that because full disclosure, I was that person. I had a boss that told me
I
this is
still
what
am.
this is what
I
networking
still
is.
am. I'm guilty.
Yeah, this is what networking is. They said, I will not pay for you to be at these groups if you do not have X amount of business cards and have X amount of leads. Okay, I'm obedient. I did what I was told. And it was really when I walked into this one room, and I've shared this story before, but I walked into this one room and the woman just put her arm around me. I don't remember her name, but I always give her credit and send good vibes her way. But she said, you know what? Here's how you can get the most out of this room. And if you want to know the tip and the trick, I'm going to tell you, we've got a newsletter dropping tomorrow on the Down and Dirty Networking Facebook and LinkedIn page. Or you can go back and watch last week's live. I talk about it there too. Between the two, you'll get all of the tips that you need. But ultimately, she gave me suggestions on how to work the room more effectively. And it wasn't until I was on my way home that I realized she was critiquing me. And so I didn't,
Mm.
I have this strong fear of looking stupid, and she didn't trigger that I was looking stupid. But I realized maybe this was the right, a better approach. And so I started shifting my approach and kind of managing the expectations of my boss. And so I changed my ways. But ultimately, I was that person. So I give a lot of grace to somebody who comes at me and kind of pitches me hard. And I especially give a lot of grace to someone who pitches me hard and then takes the feedback. I can't tell you how many
There
people,
we go.
yeah, I can't tell you how many people have knocked on my door and have become either a member of a group that I'm a part of, or I've just offered them, hey, it's hot. It's 100 degrees. I applaud your persistence. Would you be interested in? And I give them to something I know or that I do or I'm a part of. And there's a lot of people in my world when they go to say, well, how'd you meet Laura? And I can't even remember. They're like, oh, I knocked on her door. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you did. Or I called on the phone, or they were selling me something.
Listen, doing pitches nowadays is such a dangerous thing because you have folks like yourself and like myself. I love when people pitch to me because I'm a master penguin slapper, so I'm quick to do a quick Uno reverse, and bring it back because we're all trying to accomplish something, right? And
Right.
especially in certain platforms like LinkedIn, sometimes on IG, folks are trying to push and get you to buy a product. However, you have to understand there are levels to this. Some folks are looking for a sale, they have their quarter, they have to meet a certain number. But that is I'm gonna say it again, 1940s. That's like pre-World War II type of mentality.
Yeah.
That's how old school and old fashioned it is. It has no relevancy now. The value is not in the numbers. One time we had to do a Save the Children nonprofit fundraising, and we met downtown Miami, and we went across to, the rich areas in Star Island and so forth. And we would knock on the door and hand out the package and talk about saving the children and donating to the nonprofit. Wealthy Homes, 500K minimum at least. I think that's before Shaq came, but that's where you end up living. And I always found it strange that they wanted us to canvass the entire neighborhood, regardless of the feedback we got. So one of the things I started doing was I kept track of the folks who were either not available at that time or they were just getting ready to pick up their kid from school or they're preparing dinner. And I would say, hey, is it okay if I come back, a couple hours later when your husband is home or when the sun is cooler? Thank you for offering water. And they would say yes or no. But that was a relationship value because it doesn't matter what you're trying to present to folks. And I'm giving a mini class on pitching right now. It doesn't matter what you are selling or what your intention is, it's the value that you generate. Because if I have a vacuum cleaner in my house and you're a vacuum cleaner salesman, why are you wasting your time selling me a vacuum, but you won't know unless you listen? And so you always have to ask.
Technology! Today we're just having to really have some.
Listen,
This the spirit was
I
moved by
heard it
what
a
you were
split
saying.
second. I know, I heard a split second before it came down. I'm glad I removed my Black Panther poster because that's a solid wood poster, so that would be a different story. But you have to ask questions and find out what do you need. So now when I do my networking, when I do my discovery calls, when I do my icebreakers, I always ask first, what is your biggest struggle right now?
Yes.
Random, nothing to do with my publishing house, nothing to do with my business writing, nothing to do with my poetry. What's your biggest struggle right now? And most folks can tell you something in 30 seconds or a minute, and that's a segue into a conversation because now you get to understand where they are mentally. And some folks are like, you know what, like how you mentioned, again, condolences from my family to yours. You mentioned, listen, I'm kind of ready to go. I'm kind of not. You know, do you have some time, some other time? And I'm like, blessings, grace, because we have to be able as human beings to give each other space to heal, to grow, and to do what we need to do. And that's important.
It is important, and I appreciate you saying that, and I feel like this entire conversation and even the part that if you're watching, and if you haven't been watching from the beginning, we mentioned that we had all kinds of technical difficulties to even get on this live stream. If you go back and watch it from the beginning, you're gonna see blackness because all of a sudden I glitched out. It has just been a comedy of technology, and it's basically talking about what Dwight was saying about going with the flow and making
You
sure
have to.
that you just stay present and be intentional to kind of put it all together. My intention was to have this conversation. The distractions will not distract. I will laugh at them. I will be like, "Oh my gosh," and keep
Correct.
moving
No
forward, right?
distractions.
Yeah,
Let's
I will
get it.
keep moving forward and we will do that. And it's one of the reasons why, and it's just so funny it's coming up. It's one of the reasons why in Down and Dirty Networking, we start on time and we end on time. And we tell everyone to remove their distractions. And when I say start on time, and Dwight, you experienced this. We are a hard start at 12 noon Standard Central Time, and we open the waiting room 15 minutes early. And I admit everybody in at noon. If you're in at noon and 30 seconds, noon and 12:01 p.m. Central Standard Time, you're not getting in. You're not getting in. And the reason for that is because it's distracting when we get right into the conversation. Everyone's treating themselves like best friends. You're getting right into the meaningful conversations. And so you have to, for you to really be present, for you to have that meaningfulness, you have to have that intention, you have to have that purpose. And part of that is making sure you're free of distractions. Or when you're being challenged, like you and I are today, not allowing those distractions to derail you, to just go with the
Come on
flow,
now.
keep moving forward.
Stay on the
And you know
path.
what?
Hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be okay. I mean, I did an event at a hospice center talking like this with a voice. God bless my Meg and Meredith, the two team members. Thank you guys so much for being the energy,
Salute.
because that's how I like to be, is high energy. And I was high energy and everyone was laughing because that whole week that we were there, every meeting that I had, they were like, Laura, your face and your body language is your high energy self, but your voice sounds like this. Like it just didn't match. And that's what they were teasing me. My clients were calling it the NPR voice of Laura, or, the podcast voice. But the point here is relevant to those of you watching. Go with the flow. Don't let distractions derail you. Your intention about how you approach every conversation you have, your intention about how you approach networking is what is going to change and create the outputs that you want. If your intention is to create a sale and be transactional, go for it. But then don't be disappointed when there's nothing meaningful coming out of it. Don't be disappointed when people are just kind of looking at you side-eyed and walking away from you and not being attracted to you. If, however, your intention is to have a meaningful conversation, to look somebody in the eye and get to know them and to learn from them and about them, it will transform your conversations. I hear the phrase a lot, you're one connection away. There is a reason. These are the 3 C's behind me of Down and Dirty Networking: co-elevate, collaborate, and connect. Connect is last on purpose. You must co-elevate the person you're talking to. You must collaborate in thought and discussion. Yes, there are project collaborations that could come out of it, but you have to be willing to have that collaborative two-way conversation to truly connect. To truly connect. And so you are one conversation away from a great connection and a meaningful relationship. That's how I've changed that particular phrase. So, Dwight, for you, what really is the power of conversations, and how has that really been helpful with your current clients and what you currently do? How important are conversations for you in your day to day? Because relational networking, we all think of it as something external to get leads. But the way that I approach it, relational networking, we do it internally in our Down and Dirty Networking team. When I first came up with this topic many years ago, it was with coworkers and vendors. It was anybody you interacted with. Because remember, your reputational capital is a 360 degree, your reputation is 360 degrees. So, and it's in everything that you do. And so you have 100% control over that. So I'm curious for you, how important are conversations and what kind of role do conversations play in your day-to-day in your business?
Well, until my wonderful poster fell, so the word, so my book is called Pivot, Pivot, and it's a poetry memoir, right? It's about
Nice.
my life in 2020 with COVID and everything, job loss, all the fun stuff that could happen to a person. And the reason why I titled it Pivot was I realized that prior to that, being in the government sector, all my conversations were very superficial.
Mm.
Someone would call, I can't find my dog. Okay, transfer them to the animal vet services. Someone will call and say, hey, I need to know where I can find hurricane shutters or a working generator. Well, here's a number for Home Depot. However, during the whole 2020, right, that whole pandemic that changed humanity in so many different aspects, I realized that the one thing I was missing in my regular conversation was being able to lock in based on what the person was saying, which involves listening more because we don't listen enough. My grandmother used to say all the time, there's a reason why God gave man 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you can hear twice as much as you speak. And so for me, that pivotal moment came when I realized a lot of times a potential client is telling me what they need and what they want and where they are in the onboarding process, right? If I only listen. It's easy for a lot of folks to nod their head and say yes
Yeah.
to everything you're saying.
Yeah.
But no one wants that because
Right.
then they don't call back, they don't follow up. All of a sudden, it's too much money. They don't have the time. You get the manuscript that's like all raggedy in Google Docs, and you were like, I was sure I said Microsoft Word like several times. I can't do anything with this. So you have to listen, and if you have to, common school tactic, repeat what you heard from the person and then match what they're telling you with what you do. And hopefully, in the middle, you have a great client service relationship. Because if your business is anything remotely related to talking to people and getting them to either purchase your book, review your book online, attend one of your audio rooms, purchase tickets to your live virtual poetry event, come to one of your workshops, attend a class, become a co-author with you. You have to be able to listen, and in a conversation, find out what do they want. Some people have the money, but not the time. Some people have tons of time, but no money. So for me, what I've been able to do is analyze in the conversation where that person is. And real quick, in publishing and becoming an author, there are 7 steps. They go from ideating to having a community. And in between, there's the writing, the editing, the formatting, the publishing, the marketing, distribution. So being able to identify where a person is in that stage is super important because as a developmental editor, I don't have time to talk to everyone.
Mhm.
I do have time to have a quick conversation and see where they are. And now the shoe is on the other foot because now we who are being talked to, we have to be able to articulate what we want. You might have 100 poems that you want to publish, but you don't have the time right now because of family commitments. So it might be a project for next year, but you have to be able to articulate that and say, I love this concept. I see and understand the process. My time commitment, though, is not there. Let's revisit next year, or let's schedule a follow up conversation 6 months from now. So it takes two to tango.
Right.
It always takes two to tango.
I love that. And I mean, there's a reason those phrases exist, right? That's why they do it. And I think it's beautiful that you said it's about that active listening. We have a core value here at Down and Dirty Networking. Talk less, question more. If you have that nervous gift of gab that will kick in for me on occasion, questions are your best friend because it slows you
Yes,
down. If you're an introvert, you're like, oh, I don't know what to say. What's the best thing that's happened to you recently is your best friend question. It works anywhere. It works with every colleague vendor. It's simple. It's super, super easy. Amanda Gore is the speaker that I learned that from. I did not create that question, but I remember when she shared it at a conference that I was at many years ago, I was like, this is the greatest question. And it can be altered. And I've gone on and on. I've given tips on this before, but anyway, it's one that you can actually use. But I love that, talk less, question more. But I also love what you said, Dwight, about making sure in the way that you use it in your business, identifying where somebody is in addition to treating someone like a best friend, you're a super sleuth trying to figure out what do they need, where you can help. And sometimes the help is just giving support. It was so surprising, and I'll give two kind of complimentary stories and we'll go on. Hey, for those of you watching live, if you have a question for Dwight or myself, go ahead and pop it into chat and I'll make sure we get it answered for you. And if you're watching on replay, go ahead and pop it in chat and we'll make sure you get it answered, even if you're watching on replay, because we do go back and answer all questions and I will connect you to Dwight. So anyway, I know when talking about down and dirty networking, I want to make sure what's the connection point that people need. They're looking for selling. I can guide them. I know of several groups that are 100% traditional and transactional in nature. That would be great for them, depending on what it is that they're looking for. Do they have more of a global audience? Are they looking for something a little bit more local? I love to be a referral source for people and a connection point. So I will figure out what the best solution is. And that's something that I've always done. I don't always offer a solution that's mine. I may not offer something that I have that I'm going to sell you. It may be something else that is a better fit for you. And so I will do that with down and dirty networking, or even in my marketing clients, or in my working stress free AI community. Laura, can you teach me this new, interject AI tool? And I'm thinking, well, why do you want it? What do you want it to do? What do you want to accomplish? And more times than not, they don't need to know that tool. I'll gladly tell it to them, but I can see there's more strategy flaw, and I can give them the thing that they actually need that they don't even know. I said, here's what I think you need. Am I hearing that correctly?
exactly.
And they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's what I need. I said, I gladly will teach this to you, but I feel like this is a shiny object thing for you right now. And I don't think it's actually going to solve the problem. And so to be that super sleuth, to be able to do that is something that you can do. So I would tell people as a tip, if you're taking anything away from listening to this great conversation, and Dwight's giving you guys some great nuggets, one of my best questions that I love to ask, in addition to the one I already shared, is what are you an expert at? Instead of what do you do, what are you an expert at that you don't use for your job? Because the tendency is to talk about what you do for your job. So I remember the first person that told me that answered this and got me thinking about this question. This person was a farmer's insurance agent. And they said, well, I'm actually an expert at choosing colors and painting wall colors in a room. We're like, wait, what? And so the conversation went way into something different. And I was like, what a great question to ask people. So Dwight, I have to ask now, what are you an expert at that you don't use for your job? Uh-oh. Are we having more technical issues? All right. So what are you an expert at? Yeah, cool. You're back. Awesome. What are you an expert at that you don't use for your job? If if you guys are just joining us, this is more technology. We've had challenges all day. Dwight and I are going to beat this. So stick with us. All right. So Dwight, thumbs up if you can hear me. All right. Well, he's figuring out his audio. I see a couple of you in chat. Type in the chat. What are you an expert at that you do not use for your job? Just like the story of my insurance agent friend that we're still friends that can paint color on walls. It was just the most interesting and meaningful conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and put him back in the green room. He's trying to get all of his technology together. It's about going with the flow. This is what we were talking about earlier. It's about going with the flow. And so just to kind of recap some of the things that we're doing. So I'll go ahead and use this time while he comes back on. All right. So first up, your intentionality of how you network is going to change your output of your networking output. So if you want to be more intentional of having things more meaningful, I would encourage you to adopt a relational networking attitude. If your intention is to sell and tell, don't be surprised if you kind of repel and reject people. So know that going in. Dwight was talking about his intention is always to be purposeful and present. And so I would encourage you to adopt that. That is so powerful because everybody loves to be seen, valued, and heard. And if you so happen to be in the business of selling something, people don't buy stuff. They don't buy things. They buy from people. And so you have to show you're a human that cares about them. That is going to be the difference maker. So have conversations with the people that you are serving if you are in more of a sales capacity. But there's also internal sales. You can do this with vendors, your coworkers, your teammates, or even your clients. It's very interesting. And so understand that you can absolutely upgrade your networking outputs by upgrading the intention. That's the key. And I would encourage you to adopt a relational networking mindset. And the two questions that we were asking, that the first one that we asked, just to kind of recap, was what's the best thing that's happened to you recently? It's a great question. It's a better question than how are you? And the question that I shared the example of just recently was, what are you an expert at that you don't use for your job? So I think Dwight is back. So I'm going to bring him back up on screen. Dwight, thank you for your perseverance.
Salute.
All right, so here's the question. What are you an
Yes.
expert at that you don't use for your job?
Ooh, that is a cheat code question. And I'll tell you why. I'm a writer. So when I started my entrepreneurship journey, I started a publishing house where I write not just for myself, but also as a Holy Ghost writer for other folks. So, however, the writing skill is my secondary skill.
Okay.
My primary skill is poetry. And poetry is like the highest form of writing because not only are you able to understand the truths of the universe and bring it down to the point of a pen, but you're also able to make it blossom via words on paper into someone's mind into an image that they did not see coming, right? So poetry is something I'm great at. That is, again, like we said in the beginning, we didn't ask for this, but God gave me the gift of poetry, and He said, "Go forth and do your thing." So I'm like, "Yes, sir. Let's get it." So now I'm working on my seventh book of poems and business ideas and how to find your purpose in life. And at the same time, I realized you have to be able to show people how to write poetry. So not only is it important to recognize your own gift, but, and that's one of the things that we connected with, you have gone out of your way to make a community of people who resonate on your same wavelength. So for me, I'm trying to make 1,000 poets by the end of this year,
Nice.
right? By showing people how to write poetry, how to understand the levels of similes and alliteration, and how to write a nature poem, how to write a haiku, how to just simply put together 3 lines of poetry, 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 more syllables, mention nature with no rhyming, and have a wonderful haiku. And that's my give back, which is also something I'm great at. So cheat code activated. Let's get it.
I love that. And here's what from the personal side point of what I love about that. Prior to my diagnosis, and for those watching, if you don't know, just over 7 years ago, I was diagnosed with 2 autoimmune and Lyme, and I was bound to my house. And so no longer was I out and about doing all of the fun networking activities, keynotes, all the things that I was doing. And so Zoom and technology like this and live streaming is my connection to the outside world. And though I've considerably improved health wise, I'm still for the most part tethered into this space. But in hearing what you're talking about, Dwight, I remember the ability to be able to write and to really enjoy that and to write poetry long ago. My brain has not been able to do that yet again, but I appreciate the seed being planted. What can I do? Because that's something I've learned. There are certain things I can't do. And it's not, Laura, you need a pep talk. No, no, no. I truly can't do that.
No.
So being in crowds, like we were talking about earlier about multitasking, which is very difficult. If too many people are talking all at once, I am not going to be able to track the conversation. And so crowds are a bit of a challenge. I was grateful I was able to get through my mom's funeral and do what I needed to do, but it was challenging for me to shift gears. But I'm always asking, well, what can I do? Because as I do improve, what can I do? And so you have put in I need to test it. Let's see if I could write something. And would it come to me? It might not, might fall out of my head. I might not be there yet. But I appreciate the goal that you're giving me by saying that. So thank you. And that's the point of having a meaningful conversation. Here in Down and Dirty Networking, we call it 360-degree perspectives. We all have blind spots that we don't even know. You identified a blind spot. I didn't even know I used to enjoy writing. I'd forgotten that because I haven't done it, haven't been able to do it. And that could be a really cool outlet to do now, to get back to that. And so it's helpful to have these conversations. And when you do, what happens is it raises your vibrational energy. I am committed, and thank you for identifying this, Dwight. I am committed to being surrounded by heart-centered professionals. Now, in Down and Dirty Networking, we are open to all professions. So we have academics, we have corporate professionals, all professions, athletes. It doesn't matter whether you are an admin, you're in sales, you're a business owner. Those perspectives have value, especially in a conversation like this one that we're having. So I still see people watching live. Thank you for staying with us. Get up and chat and ask your questions. If you are asking questions and I'm not answering them, I'm not seeing them on the platform, I will go back and make sure they do get answered when I go back and look at all of the replays. So if you're like, why is Laura not answering the question? It's probably because I'm not seeing it here on the platform. Just chalk it up to more technology, but I promise you I'm not ignoring you. So what I would say for anyone who is watching, I hope we've given you some great nuggets. First of all, I hope you know a lot about Dwight without me ever asking him, what do you do? How much do you charge? Yeah, none of these things. I mean, he's showing you the books and things of all of those things, but even just the answers that may or may not have anything to do with what he does for a business, you're curious and you're leaning in. And that is the point, to have that meaningful conversation, that lean in moment, to have another conversation and another conversation. When I first talked with Dwight after the event and just apologized for everything that was going on and, the funeral and everything that happened, for the delay in me getting back to him. It wasn't my fault that the funeral and everything happened, but the delay is more what I'm talking about. And Dwight was being so gracious. I just said, you know what, I really feel connected to you, and it really is, very meaningful to you. And I loved that you were just there, and I treated you like a best friend. We jumped in like best friends, and it just worked. And that is the same thing for this conversation. And I hope that you guys can try this. I want to challenge you, if you're watching, to treat people like your best friend. When you're going to the grocery store, treat the cashier like your best friend. Treat everyone about you. And what will happen is your vibrational energy will raise. That time that I was in the hospice center with my mom and we were having the event, I just went with the flow. I stepped outside. I was very quiet. I had my teammates. I figured it out. I wasn't going to be denied, just like we were not going to be denied today with technology. And it raised my vibrational energy so much. And this is what it can do for you because you get to learn different things about different people from different perspectives. And it's really, really important. So I hope that this has given you a little bit of insight for those of you who are watching. And if you're sitting there going, this is interesting, but I still don't get it, then you need to come and experience it. So my first really fun tip, and then I want to see what you have to say about this, Dwight. So I mentioned at the beginning that Down and Dirty Networking is a community. We are not a coaching program. We are not a product. We are a community where we have meaningful conversations and we curate the conversations for you month to month so that you don't have to. We do all the heavy lifting, but we only have a handful of events that are open to the public. And you were at our April event and you won the first time a prize to be interviewed. I was so glad to be able to get to know you. And I'm so glad that you were here to be able to do this and that we weren't going to let technology defeat us. But what's so exciting is next Wednesday is our next Conversations and Connections. It's our next public event. So I'm curious, Dwight, from your perspective, why would someone want to attend that event next week?
Well, it has to be, again, you need to get something from a group, right? If you are in a phase of transitioning from your 9 to 5 into your entrepreneurship, right? You might want to talk to like minded individuals. How did they transition? If you're looking to find out what are the business 101 techniques, what are the relationship 101 goals I should aspire to? If you're trying to get into another aspect of your life and you want to be able to get in and tap in, then do so. But you must have a purpose in mind. If you have no purpose, then you might as well stay home. You must have a purpose. And once you know your purpose, like for myself, my goal was, this is my year of collaboration, intentionally go to different events and find more people who either want a publisher or who are trying to publish their book, or fellow poets and writers, fellow creatives. So that's always my primary goal. And once I get in, I assess the situation, see what the vibe is like, and present value. And you'll be surprised. I go to a lot of places where I'm the only publisher, the only writer, the only author. And so the value I bring is letting folks know, like how we just did, Laura, where I mentioned writing haikus, and you're like, you know what? I might not be there, but I have a spark now, a small interest in doing so. We're making 1,000 poets this year. I'm gonna count you as one of them, Miss Laura.
We'll see. We'll see if my brain can do that, but I love that. And I appreciate what you said about coming with a purpose, but I want to expand on that a little bit. If your purpose is just to check it out and see what relational networking could do, you don't need to have an idea of what it's about. You don't need to have anything prepared. So you can not have a 30-second commercial. You do not need an introduction. Everyone is going to be your best friend, and I will give you the topic of discussion. It's super simple. I am very proud of the fact that we had someone attend, and it was their very first networking experience that ever done. They were so scared, and I didn't know this at the beginning. I knew it afterwards. And they were like, Laura, I just felt like I was on the even playing field. And then there was somebody also at the April event that told me that, I've ruined networking for them because this was such a good event and such meaningful conversations. So if you're watching and you're curious and you're like, I would love to have a meaningful conversation, I do not want to sell anything, and I surely do not want anything sold to me, then this is something to come check out. Now, one of the things that we do in Down and Dirty Networking, we only allow people who have attended a Conversations and Connections event, so our public event. You have to have attended to become a member of the community. You will never, ever see the community advertised on the social media, on a website. You'll never see us advertised, join now. That will not happen. And the reason that we do that is because we want it to be very intentional. We want it to be a fit for us and for us to be a fit for you. We're not going to be a fit for everybody. And not everyone's going to be a fit for us either. So if you are looking for sales, for example, I would encourage you to really think about coming. You're not going to get sales from this community. In fact, it's banned in this community. But if you would like perspectives and ideas and understanding different things, if you would like more of a mini mastermind experience where you can ask questions to get into the insight of people to that you can then adopt into sales, or hey, how did you do this? Or, I have this situation at work I would love some feedback on. That is where this community can really be a game changer for you. So I would encourage you to attend. It's a ton of fun. We will raise your vibrational energy, even if you didn't like anything else. My goal is always to raise your vibrational energy in everything that I do. So I really hope that you would attend. Now, if you were interested in attending, drop the words CC or the letter CC for Conversations and Connections. I'm not going to have you spell the whole thing out. Just drop in comments CC, the letter CC. So it's the first two letters of Conversations and Connections. And I will send you the link so that you can check out all the information for yourself and save your seat if you feel like it's a fit for you. It's going to be a virtual event. It'll be from noon to 1:30 next Wednesday. And it's a hard start. I've already told you we start on time. If you come late, you will not be let in. And you are going to want to stay for the full 90 minutes because it's conversations. You will shortchange yourself and your conversation partners if you have to leave early. But obviously, there's no penalty if you do need to leave. But I would really strongly advise that you stay for the full 90 minutes. So get in early at the waiting room and make sure that you stay for the full time and come with just a mind to have fun and learn from people and about people. That's all you need to do to prepare, and you will have an amazing experience. So, Dwight, what is one last tip you would love to share overall with regards to networking and having meaningful conversations or being purposeful and intentional that you would like to share with our audience before we wrap up?
Well, when it comes to networking is about the individual. So the first thing you have to do, you have to know yourself. Because if you're coming in representing a company, representing, as you mentioned, a sales pitch or tactic, that's not what networking is. Networking is about the individual. So you have to spend time with yourself. Write more. Write. Literally sit down and write your thoughts, write your feelings, write poems, write essays, write a blog, write short stories. Write. The more you write, the more you understand who you are, what you want. And number one, you find your purpose. So now all these networking rooms and opportunities and different interaction communications have value because you're intentional with it, because you know who you are, you know what you want, and you know who you represent.
Ah, beautifully stated, Dwight. You are an absolute gem. I am so grateful I know you. I'm grateful you're my best friend, and we've been treating each other like best friends from day one. And I just can't wait to continue the conversations. Writing has been a challenge, both the cognitive aspect and the physical. It's why I'm still writing thank you notes right now. It's going to take some time, but they'll get done. And it's why I haven't been able to send Christmas cards out. I physically have not been able to write for the past couple of years. So you are correct. You are right. It is powerful to write, and I'm grateful that I'm starting to get that back. So for those of you who have the ability to be able to write, do it. For those of you like me that struggle with it a little way, find a different way. Use an audio app, type it. I'm telling you, I will not be denied. I will find a way that will work. What can I do? Okay, I can't do it this way. So what can I do? So if you're listening, they're going, yeah, but I can't do that. I'm going to challenge you to say, but what can you do? And then do that. There's no wrong way to do it, but I do think Dwight's giving you really great guidance to make sure that you're getting your thoughts down somehow, you're documenting them somehow, and maybe you just want to do a voice message to me or whatever, to where you can be held accountable and you can remember what you had said you wanted to do before. In my case, it just falls out of my head. And I'm like, wait, what? We said that? We did that? You want to make sure you get it. I love that, Dwight. That's great. That's great. Yeah, I need to get better. And so that's why I force myself to do it and try to get better. I'm in a couple of challenges with my mastermind that are forcing me to write. And I'm not doing it AI assisted to really see where I can get the skill and see if my mind can get going. So it's networking is a skill, it's an activity, and it's a mindset. I've said this for years. And it's the mindset that makes all the difference. And that's what we're talking about today with the intention. So Dwight, thank you so much. For those of you who would like to know more about Dwight or how you can get a hold of him, the right warrior, reach out to me and I will give you the link. I will do a warm introduction to you and I will let them know. But Dwight, I'm going to go ahead and send you to the back room. Just hang out in the back room, enjoy the fat-free snacks back there in the green room, and I'll be with you in a second. But thank you so much, sir. All right. Wasn't that great? Wasn't that a good conversation? I think it was, despite all of the technology problems and the glitches and things falling. I thought Dwight did a great job. And I hope these questions were helpful. I hope this conversation was helpful so that you can understand what networking could really do for you. And more importantly, what relational networking can do for you. So if you want to upgrade your outputs in networking, you want to love networking again, you want to avoid the pitch slap, embrace relational networking, use the questions that we gave you today to really open up the conversations a little bit better. But the best tip I can tell you is just treat everybody like your best friend. And like Dwight said, go with the flow. All right. If you are interested in testing all of this out in a really safe space that's fun, it's rewarding, everyone's goes with the flow, they're heart centered, and they're all going to treat you like their best friend, drop the two letters CC in the comments for conversations and connections. Drop the letter CC, and I will send you the link with all of the information. And if you have some questions, feel free to send me a private message, and I'd be happy to answer that for you. If you're looking for more networking tips, I encourage you to check out the Down and Dirty Networking YouTube channel. We have curated playlists of all types of tips that can upgrade your overall networking, no matter where you are in your career or business, or maybe you're in transition, or maybe you're a student. I have a video up there on that channel that will be helpful for you. So check out the Down and Dirty Networking YouTube page. If you would like to know more about our past episodes of networking know-how or some of our articles or our newsletter where we have a whole bunch of additional tips, I would encourage you to make sure you're looking at the Down and Dirty Networking Facebook and LinkedIn page. Make sure you are following those pages and check them often, because we're putting out daily content to make sure that you have what you need to network more stress-free and have more meaningful conversations so you can lead to more meaningful connections. All right, next Wednesday is the Conversations and Connections event. So make sure that you drop the letter CC into chat so I can give you the link. And I will be going live next Wednesday afternoon again for another episode of Networking Know-How. So I look forward to seeing you at the Conversations and Connections event. And of course, I look forward to seeing you in the live next Wednesday afternoon. And until then, happy networking and thanks for watching.